Hey guys, Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you a very special retro unboxing today, and that is of a pair of Nike Mercurial Vapor Superfly 1s in the Max Orange, Abyss, and Metallic Silver colorway. For those of you guys that know your history, you know that this colorway was never released to the public for reasons that I will explain a little bit later in the video. But what's even more rare and more special about this particular pair of Superflies is that this is a pre-production sample pair. So this is before they even started making the shoe. This is not the final design. So there are some minor changes on this particular pair that were different from the final production pair that got sold to the public that I'm going to point out in today's video. So this is very cool, very rare, very excited I was able to get my hands on these, and also very hard to find. So if you guys could leave a like on the video, it would be greatly appreciated. So we're going to go in today's video, I'm going to explain the history of this shoe, explain why it was never released, give you a quick overview, do a quick weigh-in as well, and because this is a sample pair in a size 9 US, they are my size, we will do an on-feet as well so you can get a better idea as to how these shoes fit. That's pretty much it though, and we'll get right into the shoes. Before I get into the shoes themselves, I wanted to talk about what exactly is a sample pair. And the best way to explain that is to talk about the ordering process for retailers. So imagine yourself as a soccer store that wants to carry Nike product for the upcoming spring, summer, winter, fall season, whatever it may be. You actually have to make your order 6 months to a year in advance of that particular product coming out. And because it is so far in advance, the shoes aren't actually in production yet. So the design is generally 90% of the way finished. They have a really good idea of what the final product is going to be, but there is still further testing to be done just to ensure the durability and the overall comfort of the shoe itself. So the final product might be a little bit different from what they have at that point in time. So instead of going to these retailers with a picture on a piece of paper saying this is what you're going to be ordering, this is what you're going to get in 6 months to a year, they have sample pairs made up to show these retailers, to send with their salesmen to go to these retailers, just so they have a physical product to show, to give the retailers a better idea as to what they're actually ordering and what they're going to receive in 6 months to a year. So salesman samples, at least from Nike, are generally handmade. They are generally made in Italy as well, and they are handmade for the reason that they don't have the production kind of facilities kind of set up yet because they don't know what the final product's going to be. These shoes are made by machines most of the time, so they have to get that machinery made for each individual model, but because it is pre-production, they have to be made by hand before the machines are actually kind of in place. So that's why you do see some minor differences between the sample pairs and the final production pair, which you do see in this particular version of the Superfly 1. A great example of the difference between a sample pair and a final product is the recently released Nike Mercurial Vapor 9. When this shoe first came out, a lot of online retailers showed carbon fiber running through the sole plate in the midfoot of the boot and glass fiber in the forefoot. And when a lot of people saw my unboxing video, they were accusing me of having a fake pair or whatever else it may be because it didn't have carbon fiber running through the midfoot. And the reason why you did see those pictures is because companies like these large retailers were sent sample pairs to take pictures in advance so they'd have them ready for the launch of the product. Obviously Nike did not kind of consider that this was not going to be the exact same as the final product, so that's why you saw carbon fiber in pictures, but the actual product didn't actually feature any carbon fiber at all. So that's kind of a little bit of a screw up there, but for the most part that's a really good example as far as the difference between a sample pair and a production pair. Generally it's very, very minor. It doesn't affect the shoe all that much, but there can be some very minor changes. I also have a salesman sample tag with this particular pair that does give you some extra information. A date on there is what's important. That is September 16, 2008. That's when this exact pair was made. The shoe was set to release roughly 6 months later, which was April 1st, 2009, and it didn't actually release on April 1st, which I'll get into a little bit later. But that's pretty much it as far as what a sample pair is, how it works, and we'll get into the shoes now. When the Superfly 1 was first unveiled, it really did cause people to lose their mind, and I was definitely one of those people. To this day, I still think that the Superfly 1 is the coolest shoe ever made. I don't care what anybody says. To me, I really love this shoe. It was kind of the first glimpse into the future of soccer shoes, and obviously they've come a long way even since 2008. It's not necessarily an old shoe, but at the time of its release, it really did incorporate some technologies that we never saw before in terms of mass production. The flywire was something that I thought was really cool, and I still think is really cool to this day. Not only does it look great, but it's a functional feature as well that actually does work. There's so many little gimmicks on soccer shoes nowadays that don't really do anything, but Flywire is one of those technologies that actually does have an effect on how the shoe fits and really does provide a very solid, supportive feel. It might not be the most comfortable, but in terms of performance, you're going to get it out of the Flywire upper. And of course, it just has a very streamlined, modern look about it that I'm a big fan. As far as the significance of this particular colorway, or the Superfly 1 in general, it was first unveiled, then it was set to make its on-pitch debut on March 11th, 2009. Cristiano Ronaldo and Zlatan Ibrahimovic were going to wear them on field for their Champions League quarterfinal or semifinal match. I'm not sure. It was the second leg. I remember that. They were both playing for, one was Zlatan Ibrahimovic was playing for Inter at the time. Ronaldo was playing for Manchester United at the time. And they wore them on pitch, and a lot of pros followed after that. And the shoe was set to release to the public, go on sale for April 1st, 2009. So 20 days after they were kind of shown on the field. What happened, though, is that a lot of pros were wearing these shoes and had some malfunctions in-game that Nike kind of wasn't expecting, obviously. Those players were Drogba, Andre Arshavin, and Luis Fabiano all had kind of major malfunctions where the upper ripped on the shoe in-game, which really caused some concern for Nike. So much concern that they pulled this colorway altogether. So this colorway of the Nike Mercurial Vapor Superfly never released to the public. You saw a couple pairs kind of pop up on eBay after the fact, but they never released to the public. And basically they kind of went back to the drawing board, tweaked the upper a little bit so it wouldn't be a little bit more durable, and then relaunched the shoe 5 months later. So you didn't actually get to have the Superfly until about 6 months after it was shown with the pros wearing them. So that's kind of an interesting little fact, something that I thought was pretty cool. And I don't think we're ever going to see something like that from Nike ever again. It's probably one of their biggest screw-ups ever, and it almost caused the shoe to never get released, period. And I think that would have been a big upset. We didn't see too many colorways of the Superfly 1 because of that. They had to re-engineer it and really kind of make something that was completely different from not necessarily from a visual standpoint, but from a kind of technological standpoint. The upper couldn't be the same anymore because they were having so many issues with it. So that's pretty much it as far as the backstory behind this colorway, why it was never released, and we'll get into the technical specifications of the shoes themselves. The major significance of the Superfly 1 is that it was the first soccer shoe ever to incorporate Flywire technology in the design of the upper. Flywire at the time was a new technology from Nike. They had just introduced it during the 2008 Olympics in their track spikes, and they felt like the technology would lend itself well to the already streamlined fitting Nike Mercurial Vapor, and I think it was definitely a good decision by Nike. You can see the Flywire is embedded in the Teijin synthetic itself, and it's pretty self-explanatory as to how it works. You have these very strong fiber/filaments running through the upper itself. They start at the lace holes and then run all the way to the base of the sole. So when you do pull that particular lace hole tight, that section of the upper grabs your foot, acts as a second skin, and provides a very responsive feel when you do push off side to side. And because it is so stiff, the upper doesn't move at all, so you have very, very little rollover. It does make for a stiffer synthetic upper, but makes for a very responsive feel at the same time. So that's why you had a very tight fit, but it wasn't necessarily the most comfortable. The Teijin synthetic on this pre-production sample seems a lot softer and a lot thicker than what you got on the final product. You're also going to notice that the toe box is a lot bigger on this shoe in comparison to the actual production model. Interesting why. I'm kind of curious as to why it is a little bit thicker. Obviously, there is no answer to that question. And I think if they released this, a lot more people would have been more comfortable in this shoe than what they released as a final product, because I certainly had some issues as far as comfort goes in the actual production version of the Superfly 1. You have a central lacing system, as you guys can see, perforations in the Teijin synthetic tongue, and you can see that the Flywire itself has some imperfections. Keep in mind this is a handmade pair. The production kind of machinery was not in place yet, so you can see how off some of the stitching is and how off some of the Flywire is, but it is pretty impressive that they were able to make a shoe that's this technologically advanced by hand. Definitely kudos to the guy who made these. He did a pretty good job as far as I'm concerned. If we look at the heel liner, there's another major difference here in comparison to the... Actually, before I get to that, there's another major difference between this version and the final product, and that's that it doesn't have an extra lace hole right about here. Any of the final products have a lace hole here and an extra lace hole here, and the Flywire is changed up a little bit because of it. This one does not have that extra lace hole, so that is one of the major changes there. I'm actually going to open up the inside of the shoe a little bit later so you can see some of the handmade portions on the inside and see how the Flywire actually is kind of fused to the upper. It's kind of cool. As far as the liner on the inside goes, you can see that you have those Vapor 4 pads on both the inside and outside of the heel there, and that was not on the final product either. The Vapor 4 pads are these little foam perforated pads, were designed to kind of lock your heel in place, but they did a really good job of giving you blisters at the same time. So I'm not really too surprised that they didn't include it onto the final design, but it's interesting that they did originally have it on there. Obviously the pros did not want it when they did have this in probably some of the prototype models. As far as the insole, I already pulled that out for you guys. You can see that you have pretty much the same perforated insole that are still on today's Vapors. It says Mercurial right there, Nike logo, and it actually says made in Italy on the insole itself, which I think is pretty cool. And then we'll move on to the sole plate really quickly. Same, this is nothing changed here as far as the sample pair to the final production model. Full carbon fiber sole plate, as you guys can see. Very low profile, very stiff, very responsive as well. Definitely wish that Nike still produced these carbon fiber sole plates because I really think that they perform extremely well. And then of course you have your classic Mercurial stud pattern that has been changed since the Vapor 8. Kind of wish they used this still as well, gave you an option, maybe even on Nike ID. I think that'd be pretty cool. And of course this was the first shoe ever to include the holes in the studs, which again was kind of a controversial thing. People were under the impression that they were going to wear out too quickly because you did have these holes in the studs. That really wasn't the case. If you stayed off the cement and wore them only on firm ground, that was never going to be an issue. So you have your holes in the 4 back studs, as you guys can see, and you have a hole here in this stud on the instep, and you have 2 holes in the studs here on the outside. So very, very cool. None of the front studs actually had any kind of holes in them on this pair or the production model. So that's pretty much it as far as the outside of the shoe goes. I'm going to take the laces out and give you guys a look at the inside as well. I'm just going to give you guys a quick look at the inside because there is some cool stuff to see on this sample pair. Give you guys a quick look at the tag first. You can see it is made in Italy, size 9 US. It is a Vapor Superfly FG, and it's a salesman sample SU09. That stands for summer of 2009, which is when this was set to release. You can see on the inside of the liner there, it says sample, property of Nike Incorporated. Obviously not anymore. And then of course not for resale, meaning that if they did give these shoes to a retailer to keep, they couldn't sell them at full price, or they couldn't sell them period, or weren't supposed to anyways. And if you look at the inside, you can see that there's actually clear polymer there, and the production models I don't believe had that. They kind of left it all exposed on the sample pair simply because it technically really wasn't made to be worn. Although you definitely could. It's got all the performance features. So you can see all that, and you can see how roughly cut the liner is in the heel. You can definitely tell that it was made by hand. All the stitches are kind of off. There's a lot of imperfections, but I think that's very, very cool. If you look closely even more, you can see the actual little flywire filaments coming out from the upper itself. There is like a layer on the inside where that they're actually woven into, as you guys can see, that little white layer. And then of course there's that fused orange liner on the inside that covers it up. So very cool that you can see all of that. You can see the toe board there on the inside, maybe if the lighting's good. Yeah, there you go. You guys can see the toe board at the end. Very small toe board for this particular soccer shoe. And again, I'm not sure if that's because it is a salesman sample, but that's pretty much just a quick look at the inside. And we'll do a quick weigh-in so you can see how light they are. When the Superfly 1 first came out, it was one of the lightest shoes around at the time. I think the only thing lighter was the Puma Ferrari shoe, for those of you guys that remember that. But nonetheless, very lightweight shoe then, and it's still a very lightweight shoe now. So I thought I'd compare it to the current Vapor 9, see what the weight difference is, because this is technically 4 years older now. Keep in mind they're both size 9 US, so this is a very fair fight. I'm going to throw the Superfly 1 on the scale and see what that weighs in at. And it weighs in at 6.9 ounces, so we'll take that off the scale, and we'll throw on the Vapor 9, and you can see that it weighs in at 6.9 ounces as well. So they weigh exactly the same thing. Kind of funny if you ask me, but that's pretty much it as far as the weighing goes. Just wanted to show you exactly what the weight difference is and show you that it's the same as the current model. I thought was kind of funny. And we'll move on to a quick on feet so you can get a better idea as to how these shoes fit. Alright, here's a look at the Superfly 1s on feet. And I just wanted to give you guys a quick look because most of you may have not seen them on feet before, especially in person, but this will give you a pretty good idea. It's a very tight fitting shoe, especially through the midfoot. The flywire is very stiff. This is early versions of flywire, so it wasn't exactly perfect. And you can see there are some kind of bubbled areas in the shoe itself. And this is one of those shoes that really didn't lend itself well to multiple foot types. If you had to have a certain type of foot for it, and if you didn't, it was very uncomfortable. I was one of those people that just could not be comfortable in this particular style of shoe, and I think it's mainly due because I am flat-footed. This instep area really does hug very tightly when you pull the laces tight. The fly wire is very stiff and really just grabs the instep of your foot. So if you don't have the arch to match the cut of the shoe, you end up getting some pretty severe blisters in the midfoot area of your foot. But everything else on the shoe feels really good. Again, it's not the best fitting shoe in comparison to the current Vapor 9. To me, that shoe fits heads and tails better than the Superfly 1, but it is very cool and definitely one of the better fitting shoes of the time if you did have the foot for it. That's pretty much it as far as the on-feet portion of this video goes, and we'll move on to my final thoughts. Alright guys, that's it for my retro unboxing of what is essentially a prototype version of the Superfly 1. I am very tempted to wear this particular pair. I don't think I ever will, but if I do, I definitely will get it on film and show it to you guys because you wouldn't want to miss that, would you? As far as any questions you guys have, feel free to leave a comment down below. And like I said earlier, if you could leave a like on the video, it would be greatly appreciated. I definitely want to continue the retro unboxings. Just don't expect them to be every week or so. There'll be something that I do every once in a while when I find something that's cool that I want to showcase that is a little bit older. If you guys did enjoy today's video and you're not subscribed already, be sure to hit that subscribe button for daily videos on all the latest soccer gear. Any questions you guys have not related to the video, go ahead and ask that on the SR4U Facebook fan page, which you can find linked down below in the description. If you guys do want to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram account name is VujoJosh. Just like this channel name, you can go ahead and look me up, or again, the link can be found down below in the description. Other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.